And well, I'm live. I'm live. So this is the show that we still have yet to name. This is the fourth show. We did the third show right before the severe weather event that occurred a few earlier this week. We're doing this show here on Friday, the 24th. And we're not probably going to discuss that this week because Matt's gone. He's in Southern Illinois right now. I'm waiting for him to actually uh, say something on the chat. Oh, excuse me, on the chat thing before I bring him in to make sure that he's around before we get going. But let's just say the severe weather around here was it didn't happen, but it did in Illinois. There was a lot of tornadoes, 12 or 13 of them. So yay for them. I'm sure they would have just loved to have the straight line wind instead. Better yet, they would have wanted nothing. So, but anyway. But unfortunately, we have a severe weather threat coming up tomorrow. Well, we'll see about that. I predict sunshine. So there's that, and other than that, there was some really same storm system that brought the lack of severe weather here, brought a lot of rain into West Virginia. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the video and if you haven't, there's video out there of a house floating down a creek, which looks more like a raging river, and the house is actually on fire, and then it hits a bridge, but then that's when the video ends. And that's kind of sad. There's a lot of people. There's been, I think, as of this tape of video being made, I think 4 people have died. 1 child is missing, to a certain that I know of. That's gonna. By the time anybody listens to this, maybe days, months, weeks ahead, it could be a totally different situation. But excuse me. But that's what it is as of right now. I did see something today where the Greenbrier Country Club in West Virginia is completely flooded and filled with mud everywhere. So you're like, well, why are we talking about that? Well, the Greenbrier Classic, which is a PGA Tour event, goes to that golf course in 2 weeks. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So if they can get the golf course back in 2 weeks, God bless them. They're the best greens people ever. I honestly think that it will not be held. If it is held, it won't be on that golf course. It'll have to be somewhere else. And to put a golf course into tournament conditions in a 2-week period, it has to be put somewhere, some other golf course to a certain extent that could quickly get it up to tournament specs in a 2-week period. So we'll see about that. But there's quite a bit of stuff happening there. Other than that, we didn't mention this on Tuesday when we had the thing, but we did have a tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico earlier in the week. It lasted a day. It was Danielle. So it's only June 24th as of this tape, and we've had 4 named storms. Alex was in the winter, so then that's like that was a hurricane. But excuse me, and I'm tired for all reasons that I don't know of. But so far, we've had 3 tropical storms since mid-May, or roughly about that. And I don't think the Eastern Pacific has had 1 storm yet. They've had a depression, but I don't think they've had a named storm. So we'll see. And the Atlantic has had 4, and everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, it's a busy season. Yeah, you've had 3 tropical storms. The hurricane was in January. call me back when we have category 3s and 4s and we have 5 of them in the Atlantic at the same time. Then we'll discuss it. Anyway, which could happen. I'd say because we're pretty much El Nino's over. La Nina's starting. So prepare yourself for fun. As I continue to yawn. So that tells you this is going to be a good episode when I'm yawning. But anyway, I'm going to continue to wait to see if Matt's going to say something, to say why he's not been invited, because I didn't want to invite him if he wasn't going to be paying attention to his phone, because he's down in Carbondale, Illinois at his Army group's reunion for his Army unit that went to Iraq and the Middle East. So I might just let him be doing that to be nice and not have him kind of interrupt his time with his former brothers in arms in action, because that seems to be more that seems to be something that he should be putting all of his attention on and not onto this show. So we may or may not let him do that. We'll see. If he wants to come on, I'll let him in, even if it's only for a few minutes or whatnot. But I thought we were going to do this show on Friday, so I thought we'll put it in and see what happens. But with regards to the system tomorrow, given what we saw Tuesday and the lack of anything happening, I know there is a risk area which I can bring up, so I'm gonna do that. So let me go and find it. I'm hoping I'm still talking while I'm doing this, and I am. So let's see. Day 2. So let's see what we have here. And I like how it shrinks. I don't like that, but anyway. So you can see here. We have, we'll just do this. We have the slight risk in northern Iowa, up into Wisconsin, the western UP and Michigan, most of Minnesota. This enhanced risk, which pretty much is from about the entire Twin Cities metro, maybe even out past, even west from Lake Minnetonka, up to just south of Duluth, and then over into northwestern Wisconsin. So, and as you saw briefly, you can see it has a 30%. It has a hatched area for significant severe weather. I'll believe that when I see it. The thing that, excuse me, because I'm yawning. The thing that I'm not really seeing a lot of, that I'm wondering why I heard something, but anyway, is that it has the hatched area of significant right up, butting up against Lake Superior. I would start to question that a little bit. Not the why it's butting up. My questioning is, why is it up all the way to Lake Superior? And for one reason, I've looked at several models and it indicates a lake breeze coming off of Lake Superior. For those that wouldn't know, Lake Superior's water temperature is not warm. It never gets very warm, even in the summer, maybe up into the low 60s. Or the low to mid, at least the mid 60s, maybe even upper 60s. But any breeze is going to completely stabilize the atmosphere. And I've seen several models that have forecasted that will move And what will likely happen is you'll get storms blowing up on the lake breeze, on the lake front, on what I'll call the lake front, or the lake breeze. We'll just call it that. I probably just completely gotten everybody confused. You'll have storms coming in from the west or northwest, and then you'll have what I'll call the lake boundary, the lake breeze boundary, coming in from the north or northeast. So you're going to have storms in two different areas. So I see that on a few models where it shows that. So it's going to be a real mess. If I had to take a guess, I would more or less move the enhanced risk slightly away from Lake Superior, but keep it in the same place. And I would even move the slight risk right to the shoreline. They kind of have it going off into Lake Superior and a little bit. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, wait a minute. Let me make sure. Yeah, they actually say that there's a slight risk of severe weather all the way up into Lake Superior. Yeah, I don't think so. Thunderstorms, yes, but they're gonna. I don't know. Wind, maybe, but that's about it. So we'll see about that because I don't trust that at this point because lake breezes, especially off of Superior, tend to stabilize really quickly. So as I continue to yawn, and I'm not, gosh, maybe I am tired. I don't know. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's going to be here. It'll be probably, at least in Iowa, northwest Iowa could see storms by very late afternoon, evening, and then overnight stuff for the rest of the state. Probably, the best, I would say the best severe weather chances would probably be wind and hail. Any tornado threat will be north of the state in Minnesota and into Wisconsin, especially. So I have to say the Twin Cities are probably going to be, as it looks to be, the bullseye for severe weather on Saturday, the 25th, for those that would want to look that up. But and then after that, I'm going to probably not go very long if I'm going to be yawning this much, and I've only been doing this just over 10 minutes. But to have the after the front moves through Sunday morning, it looks to be here. We're finally going to have some cooler conditions. But then, unfortunately, and I haven't looked at the GFS lately, so I'm going to do that now because I'm like, yeah, why not? So, but what I was seeing yesterday when I was doing forecasting was that it looks to be that next week is going to be filled with a bunch of nocturnal activity, which is horribly hard to forecast for. You never know when it's going to start. You never know where it's going to go until it starts and is starting to go somewhere. And I mean, I can't tell somebody that it's going to, oh, come on now. Okay. So I'm looking at the model off camera right now. And as I can see, oh, yay, nocturnal activity, at least a few nights this next week. Great. That'll be fun. Not every night, but that's another case. One night we could have stuff and the next night we don't. That's going to be so horrifying. But that's what we get a lot of our storms or this nocturnal stuff in the summer. So we'll just have to watch for it and see if it develops, because otherwise it looks to be fairly quiet for most of next week. Looking at the forecast, don't see much of anything else. It's still going to be baking in the southwest again, because I'm sure they're just loving their 110 to 115 degree temperatures, but it looks like that's going to continue. Probably it's going to expand a little further to the north as well, but not around here. Doesn't look like it's going to get really hot. Of course, that could change as well. If push comes to shove. But I will mention something, and this goes back to the severe weather threat or not threat or whatever from uh, earlier in the week, because there was some chasers. There's quite a lot of chasers, and this is what was really funny about what happened on Wednesday. It was Wednesday. Never mind, Wednesday. Wednesday was the day of the severe weather. Duh. Our preview show was on Tuesday. Anyway, Wednesday. That was the severe weather day. We had SPC issued a Mezisco discussion saying, ooh, a watch is coming, 95% chance. And it said it was going to be before 5:15. Well, that time came and went, and there was no watch. All we had were tiny little pop-up showers that would form, which and so in hindsight, I'm probably going to talk about it, but we'll probably talk about it more in the next episode. But then they issued the watch after the storms passed me, and they issued the watch for two counties west of me until 1 a.m. First thing I thought of is, I'm sorry, the storms have already passed. Why is a place 650 miles to my west under a tornado watch? If they were going to issue a tornado watch, it should have been east of me, and then it would have verified really good. In turn, the western third of the watch didn't verify at all. The eastern two-thirds did convincingly, but the western third didn't. Horrifyingly bad. Because we had no tornadoes, no severe thunderstorms, and we didn't have any. We had virtually very few thunderstorms, period. I would say this, and this will be the last thing I'll talk about Wednesday's event, that one of the little pop-up shower things formed near just to my west. And I was watching it, and we were actually going to start doing live coverage and going all crazy and whatnot, which we never did, but we were all in a conference call thing. So we had our chasers out there, and they were watching the same thing. They were just outside of town. And Matt, by the way, was also nearby too. So, but I wasn't in contact with him. But anyway, and I looked out my apartment door and outside because I went outside. Why? Because there was no warnings. There was no watch. So I looked outside, and there was a lowering. It was looking like a slightly disorganized. It looked to be. At first, I thought it was possibly a shelf cloud, but then it looked more like it was becoming a wall cloud because there was little tags hanging from it, and that was my clue. Okay, it's trying to do something. There was very slight rotation on it on radar. I never saw it from the distance because I'll get to when it got close, really close later. It then started having what looked to be a tail cloud to the south, and that got me very interested. And I ended up taking a picture, which I'm going to bring up now which is going to take a bit because I got to find it. But this is when it was still further to the west, so it's going to take a while before it's going to pop up. So just bear with me because I didn't have this prepared. So, but it then started looking very good, and then it would look really bad, and then it would look really good again. Okay, why is this not working? Come on. Bear with me. This stupid thing's being bitchy. Okay, here it goes. Okay, I want to... And this is what I get for not... Okay. So now I got it prepared. So this is... And this is when it was starting to just get disorganized again. So here it is, right here. And as you can see, you would look at that and go, oh, it looks like just a cloud. This is when it was starting to get a little disorganized again. You can see here is a lowering. It looks like a thing. And then this was the remnant of the tail cloud because we had this cloud. This cloud actually came down. We had rising scud some scud that was rising into it. I saw it over here and over here where the scud was kind of going up. The radar presentation of this looked like a shower. It had about 40 dBz. It didn't look very impressive. But then when it got closer, which I didn't take a picture of because the contrast wouldn't have been that great, what we had was, when it got closer, it disorganized, and then it seemingly reorganized again. And it reorganized even better. But by that point, it was almost directly overhead. And at this point, what I could see a forward flank where the rain and what would have been hail would have been, but all it was a light to moderate rain. Maybe not even moderate. I'd say it's a light rain. And then you had what would have been the inflow notch, because there was another cell, which actually was this lowering. So you could actually say it was the hook because it was connected to the forward flank. So you had a forward flank, you had the rear flank, and which is the ball, which would have been where the tornado would have been, which came over my apartment building. But this is what was interesting. When it was overhead, almost directly overhead, I looked out. I could see the wall, the thing. It wasn't rotating almost at all, but it was where it should have been if there was something interesting to look at. I could see the forward flank. I could see where the inflow was, and I could see a beaver tail forming. I could see the tail cloud starting to form again, and there was some kind of scud kind of hanging around, and I could see something trying to hang back further to the west. So it was looking like it was trying to do something, but the atmosphere was still capped because the atmosphere was stabilized by showers and rain that had occurred like many hours before. At this point, this was like 4:30, and it had been sunny at that point since about 10 a.m. There had been nothing after 10 a.m. We had sunshine with a few clouds, and it was still, the cap was still in effect. But it was still it was popping storms. So it was trying. It was bringing in lowerings. It was trying to start wanting to brew something bad, and it never could. It kept cycling. It was, I would consider it to be a cyclic shower, because it cycled at least 3 times before it went to the east, and it eventually dissipated, only to then some other cells formed slightly further south. This would have been east of me. And then they started getting more and more organized. Then they crossed the Mississippi and then blossomed into these tornadic supercells almost immediately. And as many storm chasers would say, and we've had several on before, they say, Iowa, we don't chase there because nothing ever happens there. And heaven forbid, the minute these storms crossed the Mississippi River, they started producing tornadoes within 10 minutes. I swear it happened, because the storms started looking way better on radar, because the DBZs jumped into the 60s and 70s. They started producing hail. Everything went crazy, and we ended up with nothing except a trace of rain. I only had a trace of rain, a trace. I was under. And I made this snide remark. I was in, where I live, I was in the hatched hail, meaning significant hail over 2 inches in diameter. I was in the 10% hatched tornado risk area. Yeah, I saw a lowering, so I'll give them credit. That probably would have, if we hadn't been stable, we would have probably had a tornado here. I was also in the hatched wind area. Well, it was breezy. During that event, that when the storm went through, just before the storm went through, the wind did started getting a little bit gusty. So it was trying to do inflow. It was trying its hardest. It never just could. And what did I get? I got 2 minutes of sprinkles, and the rest of the day was sunny. So I loved my risk area. And then after the storm went by, and I mentioned this earlier, after that storm went by, it was another 30 minutes, and then they issued the tornado watch. Which by that point, the sky had cleared and it was sunny again. So you almost have to pull hair out, which I don't have much of anymore, to just pull hair out and scream bloody murder. OMG, why issue it now and that far west, for that matter? Everything east of there, bang on. They did the best. They did a really SPC did a good job in Illinois. They nailed that perfectly. The problem I have is they had the risk area too far west, and they should have trimmed it back at 11 o'clock, and especially at the 3 o'clock update when they knew that the air was stable in Iowa, which it was, because you weren't going to get storms to develop. And guess what? They didn't. They tried. They never could. So I would say that SPC did a good job, except for the fact the western area of the risk never materialized, and it should have been downgraded back, at least in the Iowa portion, at the latest at 3, because, and I bring back up the part where I was talking about it was silly. You had people saying, SPC, when they did the mesoscale outlook, I think it was 3 o'clock, saying, a tornado watch is coming. And it was a 95% probability they were going to issue it before 5:15, which they didn't. It was at about 5:30, 5:40 is when they issued the watch. Every storm chaser, there was a bunch of them in Illinois, you all of a sudden started seeing them stream into Iowa, thinking, oh my gosh, there's going to be storms, and we're going to see some action, and we want to be there when the tornadoes hit. Then nothing happened. And immediately you saw them all stream back into Illinois, and luckily, at least not if all, but most of them, if not all, at least got something, because there were tornadoes all over, down over to the east. So they at least got something out of the ordeal. But anyway, that's what I'll end on with Wednesday. We'll probably talk about it again on our next program. I just wanted to get that part out because I found it hilarious that storm chasers kept going back and forth. But then the night, I'll go back to that. The night before, we had some really vivid lightning, which is the storms that ended up killing our severe weather threat here. But that lightning was really good. And those storms were not severe, but there were some severe thunderstorm warnings early in the morning. We had more severe weather on that there in the morning at between midnight and 5 a.m. than we did at the afternoon when we were supposed to have lots of severe weather. Anyway, so that's why I'm not going all crazy, all going, oh my gosh, for tomorrow, because I don't want to get, we've been burned. Iowa has been burned too often with severe weather outlooks. You could say there's a marginal risk of severe weather and we'd have tornadoes. You could say we have a high risk of severe weather, it'll be capped all day. I mean, it just happens in this state. I don't know why it keeps happening, but it's becoming an epidemic that Iowa is just a state that just has problems when it comes to forecasting a severe weather episode in this state, because it's becoming harder and harder to figure out why Iowa is different than any other state. Different than Minnesota, different than Illinois, different than Wisconsin. Don't know. Makes no sense to me. So, anyway, I don't see anything from Matt, so what'll probably happen is I'll end the show, and then Matt will jump on and say, aren't we doing the show? And I've already ended it, which would be hilariously funny. But I don't have anything else that I know of besides the fact that I'm glad that, for those that would know from last week, that I got a newer car, and I'm glad it didn't get hail damage. So at least I'm happy that we didn't get the hail. So anyway, as of as for that, we'll see what we're gonna do. I'll discuss the with Polygon, because we're still trying to get guests on, but I think with it being summertime, it's probably going to be very difficult to keep trying. I could email people all under the sun, and we probably wouldn't get any responses, or we'll get responses and then I'll respond back and then I don't hear from them again. So we'll just keep trying and see what we get with that and whatnot. But other than that, I don't have anything else at this point, but other than to say that we'll be on next week with another show that we hope to name, because we're going to be on to the 5th show by then, and we still haven't named it yet. Weather everywhere. We'll see. So anyway, so thank you for tuning in. I know this probably sounds almost kind of boring and dull and uninteresting, but when it's only one person doing it today, and I let Matt be with his buddies, which I'm grateful that he served, because God bless him. He's a veteran and he should be, and I want to treat him and his buddies with respect and have him be with his Army unit buddies. So thank you, and we'll see you next week when Matt may be back on, and hopefully he's not hammered then. So thank you, and God bless everybody. And by next week, by the way, next week will be the beginnings of the 4th of July weekend. It'll probably be raining. So thank you, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.